Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Spiritory, and today is Friday. So today we are kind of talking about negativity and how we protect ourselves from it, and sort of is magical practice a danger kind of thing. I'm sure you've been watching for the whole week, and if you haven't, you can go back and watch everybody. It's been a really interesting topic. So I'm just, as always, going to give, my perspective on it, and so we'll go from there. So there's kind of two parts to this question. The first one, the question asker is talking about someone that they knew who was saying that they had done magical workings and they didn't realize that it was evil at the time, to them, quote evil, and that later on realized it and is now very Christian. And then the second part is all about how do we deal with negativity in our life, how do we get rid of it, how do we manage it, that sort of thing, especially spiritual negativity. So, all right, the first part. First off, I think we addressed this. There was a video, I think it was Carol Kornacki or something like that. Anyway, she did a video, or she did this speech to a bunch of other Christians. I mean, preaching the choir type thing, right? All about the dangers, right, of paganism and witchcraft in general. So I did a reaction video to that, and I just didn't understand why she was yelling at me the entire time. She just spends all her time yelling. And here's the reality of this and of my perspective, I guess. Witchcraft is not inherently evil. You can have somebody who has a hammer and could build a house with it, and it would be amazing. Or you can have somebody who takes that hammer and does negative things with it, right? So it's a matter of kind of taking that tool and how is it wielded. And that's why I think education is so important, because I think that it's one of those forces that you really need to understand, and you need to learn. So I encourage everybody to learn as much as you can, whether that means it's on your own through books and channels like this, or you seek out a mentor. And I really do encourage you to seek out mentors. I think the pagan community is growing and is amazing, and there are wonderful people out there. Now, that's not to say that there aren't not so wonderful people out there too. So, just protect your heart, protect yourself, and trust your gut. So, and I think you'll know who's being genuine, right? Where it's coming from here, who really want to help you and help you grow on your path. Then you're gonna know. You're gonna know right in here. So that being said, okay, when I hear this whole thing about you didn't know it was evil, right? That bugs me. That bugs me a lot, because I get that all the time when people say, well, you think you're not worshiping the devil, but you really are. And it's like, no, I'm not. I am not worshiping the devil. Just the way it is. So I'm not a devil worshiper. And, that does get on my nerves a bit when people say that. It's definitely something that I think I have tried to just eliminate from my life as much as possible. I had, some experiences with some negativity recently in my job, where, because I was really trying to defend and advocate for some kids, and unfortunately that meant that these people were not doing what was best for these kids, and I had to call them out on that they weren't following the law. They didn't like that, and so they got really petty and made things difficult, and so that's that sort of negativity that you have to deal with every day in the modern world. So why then would I choose to have people in my life, people who are supposed to bring me joy, friends, right? Why I would have them be negative. So I try not to associate myself with that sort of negativity as much as humanly possible, right? So that sort of brings us into that second piece of how do we deal with the negativity in our life. And so for me, I think that eliminating it in my personal life as much as I possibly can, and managing it for my professional life. That's really what it's about. When it comes to my spiritual life, however, that's a little bit different. So one of the things that I find really important is having a good shield, right? And so sort of like Star Trek, right? So once the shields are up, as long as they're fully charged, nothing can get in, right? Nothing can touch you. And that's that defensive power that I make sure is always there, because for me, it's my protection, and makes me feel better when I have that. At this point, I've been doing this so long, it's pretty effortless. I don't have to do a lot to maintain it, but when you start out, it can be very difficult to put that energy into it. So finding good reserves of energy, pulling it from outside of you, things like that. I pull a lot from elemental energy, so that's why I wear certain things and I'm always around certain things. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to move to an island, because I'm highly connected to water, and being surrounded by water, it's almost like constant fuel, right, for my shield. So that would be kind of how I protect myself in that way. And I think that, when we're looking at kind of dealing with the negativity in our community, I think we have to sort of take that same mindset, right? Which is that, we have to trust our gut. We have to trust our heart. We have to know that it's okay, right? It's okay to say, this is not for me. Like, this is too negative for me. This isn't going to be a healthy space for me. I'm going to step away. I know a lot of the younger generation is on Instagram and Snapchat and things like that, but a lot of my generation is still on Facebook. And I know how good it feels to weed out some of your friends list occasionally. It's just that purging of that negativity. It can feel really good. And so that's why spring cleaning comes up, right? So this is sort of the time of year for the Northern Hemisphere. So it might be something to think about. It's just sort of purging out a little bit of that negativity from your life. And it's also about how do we stop ourselves from bringing negativity onto ourselves. And one of those things would be negative self-talk. So I like to give an example. Obviously, I've talked about my work as a therapist, and one of the things I do is dialectical behavioral therapy, and in that we have this sort of mind model, right? And what we do is we have these two circles, right? One is your emotion mind, one is your rational mind, and they overlap. And this little space, you can see it like right in there where they overlap, that's called your wise mind. So when something happens and you're really worked up, you're in your emotion mind, right? You're super negative. Like, all you can think is negative self-talk. Oh, this is never going to work out. It's going to be awful, right? It's going to be horrible, right? It can be really hard to directly move into positive self-talk from that. I know I have clients all the time who really struggle with that. Like, how do you positively reframe something that, you feel like, no, this is not going to work out. This is going to be awful. How do you instantly switch to something positive? That's difficult. So what I always say is you can't always get to that perfect wise mind, which is that combination of that rational and emotional. Sometimes you just need to go to the neutral, right? In this case, the rational, right? That neutral plane where it's not positive, not negative, right? So for example, if you were saying something was happening and you're like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. It's going to be awful, right? Well, it can be really hard to switch that over instantly and be like, no, it's totally going to work out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome, right? That can be difficult to make that switch from such extremes. So instead, try taking the neutral path, saying, I don't have any evidence right now that tells me one way or the other how this is going to turn out. I'm going to have to wait and see. And that's your neutral, right? That's your rational mind, right? Sort of like Spock in Star Trek, right? Bringing it around, that very logical, right? Emotionless, and not positive and not negative, just facts, right? So try that instead. If you're really struggling to take your negative self-talk and turn it into positive self-talk, trying to get rid of that negativity, try taking it to a neutral place. that can sometimes be a little bit easier. So, yeah, so that would be pretty much all I have to talk about. I know I've been talking for quite a while. So, anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. And as always, blessed be and aloha.